So welcome to the Hands-On Business Podcast. Delighted you can join us again today. I'm really looking forward to speaking to our next guest. Before I start, I just want to remind everybody that if you like what you hear, share the love and please rate the podcast with the link that I put in the podcast description. And if you don't enjoy it, as I always say, please keep that to yourself. So today's guest is Carole Bozkurt, and Carole is a sales and marketing strategist and business coach. Over 10 years ago, she set up the Blueprint Group practice, and the aim was to help female coaches build a fulfilling and financially rewarding business and a brand that their clients can adore. Now, she's worked with hundreds of coaches, consultants and creatives to build 6- and 7-figure businesses, and obviously we're going to get into that as we go through the podcast. Now, in her last corporate role, and she might well tell you who the company is because she's headed up marketing for a European financial management division of the largest actuarial consultancy in the world. Very easy for me to say, you may think. Prior to that, she worked for a company that pioneered executive coaching in the UK, working with FTSE 100 companies and their board level executives. Now, Carole also has an MA in marketing and is CIM qualified. So obviously talking from a great deal of experience and an academic background as well. And she has 25 years marketing and sales experience. So welcome, Carole.
Thank you, Hakeem. Lovely to be here.
And very pleased to have you. So we're going to be talking today about Supercharge or supercharging your business growth, which just so happens to be the strap line on Carole's website. So you probably like what I did there. So just let my audience get to know you a bit more, Carole. Tell me about your background and your journey to where you are now.
Okay, well, you know, I got into sales and marketing mainly because my sister did it, right? So she did it, so I followed her. I've got an older sister. And I have to admit, I was sort of like wandering around a bit. I didn't have a lot of focus. I ended up working for SoftLab, which was the largest software house in Europe at the time. And when I left there, I went to work for a company that pioneered executive coaching. I'd always been interested in personal development. I'd read a lot of personal development books myself, on, how to be assertive and things like that, because I was actually quite shy when I was young. And when I went to work for the coaches, they said, you've got to go through all the training that the coaches go through. So I had to go through all the training they went through, which included having counseling. And twice a year, we had some of the top psychiatrists in the country come in and take us through training. I mean, it was absolutely fascinating. And I stayed there for about nearly 10 years. I loved it so much. But when I left, I went to work for the largest actuarial consultancy in the world, which is called Towers Willis. Yeah, or Willis Watson or Willis Towers. It's changed its name a few times. So I worked for Towers Perrin, and then they merged with Watson Wyatt, and then they merged with Willis, and I think now it's called Willis Towers Watson or Willis Watson or something like that. All a little bit complicated. But when I left there, I started my own business, and I initially wanted to start up a marketing agency. And then I sort of like realized that I was going to have to be managing people a lot. And I really loved working with my clients and helping them to get that end result. So the first few years while I worked for myself, I was freelancing, and I was working for people that I'd worked for in my previous lives, in my previous companies. And I was just taking all the risk. I was getting paid very well, but I was taking all the risk. And I thought one day, no, what I want to be able to do is really be able to manage my own flow of revenue coming in. So that's when I decided to start taking things online. Now, amazingly, although I've got all of these years of experience, especially around in selling, when I started working for myself, I thought, oh, I don't know how to sell. I don't have a degree or a diploma in it. So I put myself on some sales courses, and the courses were really good, but I found it very, very difficult to sell. And it was just so hard. There were so many steps, and I just kept tripping up the whole time. And then I thought, do you know what, I'm going to go back and start selling the way I used to sell. And when that happened, my whole business started to change. And so I had some VIP clients, and I started to introduce to them the way that I used to sell. And within a month of me introducing some of those activities, their business started to sell, started to change. For some of them, they doubled their revenue. They went from earning £2,500 or 2,400 to over 5,000. For others, they were very nervous and they only inched forward £50, but they were so excited when we looked at their figures the following month and they'd hit their goal and made that extra £50, and then they'd go a little bit further. So after all of that, working with my clients one-to-one, I then thought, you know what, I'm going to create a online sales program. And really, that's when my sort of like online journey really did kick off. So I work with people, I still work with people one-to-one, but I also do online, and I have a high level, I was going to say mastermind, high level networking group and online membership. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Carole. So we're going to dig into a few things there. The first one I want to dig into, because obviously one of the things you said in your sort of like mission statement is about working with female coaches. Is there a reason why you've targeted female and not across the board?
I really like working with introverted women, and I really want to help those women who are quite shy, that they feel nervous, they, you know, put themselves into the background. They're not the people who are stepping forward and they're the big personalities, but they're so incredibly interesting, and they've got so much passion, and they've got so much to share, and they really want to make a difference in people's lives. And when I was looking for my niche, they were the people that I really enjoyed working with the most. And they were also the people who, for some reason, were attracted to working with me. So it was sort of like a meeting of minds. I really enjoyed working with them. I really want to see them grow and flourish and build a fantastic business and really help them to be confident, especially around selling. And equally, they were attracted to me. So it just sort of like worked, and that's why I chose that niche.
Okay, that's fair enough, and I think it's probably an underserved niche, because if you look at lots of sales courses, etc., they tend to be targeted for the almost opposite of what you've just described, the extroverted, braggadocious salesperson that can just, you know, stand out there and start saying these things, which actually leads me on to my next question. Because one of the things you just said, you know, when you were saying about what led you on that journey was around that you went on sales courses, and it's very striking. You said you went on sales courses, you said they were really good, but they weren't very effective, and then you went back to the way you used to sell, and then it became very effective. So I was just curious to know, so what were they telling you on those sales courses that you've defined as being good, but not really being effective? So I was curious to understand that.
I think the thing is, first of all, they were very professional people in the way that they approached their training, the way they delivered their courses, and they delivered on their promise. But it's like anything when you do an online course. An online course is created for, let's say, the mass market. Even if you're just selling it to 10 people at a time, it's not a tailored approach. And the thing that you have to do with every course is you've got to learn it, take on board the learning, and then it's all about testing it and tweaking it and seeing if it works for you, your target audience, and what you're doing. And what I found was that some of the courses were, here are the 7 steps and you have got to do the 7 steps. And I was going to meetings with the 7 steps because I could not remember it. I think my brain was rebelling with the 7 steps written down. And when they go to the ladies, I think, oh, I'm so pleased. Let me just have a quick look at those 7 steps so I can see where I am. I could not, for the life of me, remember them. And do you know what? I have a fantastic memory. Just couldn't remember these steps. And it was a nightmare. And I think what it was is that I had, for so long, sold in my own way, authentically, And although I was in companies where we did have lots of sales training, like there was Sandler training, there was consultative selling, you know, we had lots and lots of different selling training courses that we went on. But I just had my own way of doing it. And it was also about taking that sales process and making it very easy for women to sell, not for them not to feel that it's pushy or aggressive or manipulative, and for them to understand that you can just show up as yourself. And as long as you show up as yourself and you talk to people, and listening is really key, and asking great questions, you're going to get the sale. And the way I teach people to sell is, you know, if you're meeting somebody for an hour, you should be speaking for a maximum of 15 minutes. Sometimes I say 20, but really 15 minutes. And the less you speak, the more likely it is you'll get the sale.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And there's two things to pick out of there. Number one, it is about being authentic and being yourself, because I think when you are trying rigidly to stick to an ideals or a spin or a consultative selling process, you can actually see the cogs whirring in people's mind as they're speaking to their customer, as opposed to actually engaging with the customer, which are obviously picking up on your listening. And that's what, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons why I try and do a podcast, because when you do a podcast, you're forced to ask a question and then listen to the answer and then see where it goes, as opposed to, you know, when you're presenting, etc., you're doing a lot of talking. Okay, so I want to get into that, you know, your sales process, because it's a fascinating one. But before we get there, so just talk me through what, you know, what would a normal day for you look like? What's your normal day? What's your day job look like?
Well, I don't know if I should really admit all of this, but to be honest, the first thing I do, my first job for my work, you know, normally I get up and I'll do some gratitude journaling. If I could possibly get a walk in for 30 minutes, I would do that. Sometimes I do. It's a lot harder in the winter months when it's darker. But then what I do is I spend time on social media, and I spend around about 3 hours on social media. And that is putting my post out. It's commenting on other people's posts, going back, checking my posts, adding responses in, and actually it just takes time. So for the majority of my days, that's what I start off with. And then normally it's either a case of I've got something going on with my online membership, and I'm maybe having a meeting or having a call with somebody or preparing some training for them. I'm always, every single month, I'm always preparing training. It's either once or twice a month, I'll do a new piece of training. It could be a masterclass I'm running, or it might be something for my membership clients. And what I like to do is I like to say, right, I've got this masterclass I'm running. I know that I'm going to need about 60 slides. I'm going to write 5 to 10 slides a day, and I like to break it down into little bits. So a lot of the time I like to see that I'm progressing. The one thing I try and do every single day, and I do say to my clients, you should do this, is I try and sell every day. So I'm either having a sales conversation with somebody, or I'm reaching out to them via, you know, Facebook Messenger or LinkedIn message, and I'm asking them to do something, which normally incorporates them parting with some money. So that could be coming to an event that I'm running. It could be coming onto a course that I'm running. So I try and always get some sales in every single day.
Yeah, I think, you know, that what I've just picked out of there, which I think was really, really valuable, is that you've got a process of what you want to do on a daily basis, but it's flexible.
Oh yeah,
is the first thing. But then also you've broken, when you've got a big task, you're breaking it down into steps, which I think is critical. Because I think lots of people try and take all at one thing. I've got 60 slides, and this I think is that procrastination conundrum. It's like, I've got 60 slides. Oh, crumbs, that's gonna be a big job. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And then they leave it so late that then you're then panicking when the date's coming. Whereas if you break it down like 5 slides a day, It's not that difficult, and you can just get it boxed off quite quickly.
Yeah, and the great thing is when I do things like that, for me, I know that doesn't work for everyone, but for me, what happens is when I come, say, to day 2, I go back and read the first 5 slides. I pick up any typos because I do so much typing. I sometimes can't see the wood for the trees, so you come with a fresh pair of eyes. But also as well, what happens in my brain, I'm allowing it to ferment. So I'm allowing what I'm going to talk about to ferment. And then suddenly I'll wake up and I'll think, I need to add this in. And often they're like the little golden nuggets that I'm putting in. And it's because I've given my creative thinking space to actually think and not cram it into, I've got to get this all done now in 2 days, because I just don't then have any space to reflect on things.
And in terms of the courses that you're writing, are they brand new courses? Are they adaptations of other courses, or are they bespoking of stuff that you've already got?
A lot of the time they're brand new. So for my online membership, part of the promise is that they will have this thing called a learning hit every month. And that is a new piece of training. And I also ask them what they want as well. So sometimes I think, I know what they want, I'll do this. Other times I will ask them. So last month they said, we want to know how to run a webinar and sell from a webinar. And that was probably about an hour and 30 minutes worth of training, taking them through the whole thing from start to finish. Writing everything, and not just breaking down how to actually structure the webinar, but how they need to sell it, how they need to promote it. They've got to think about their headline. What's the reasoning behind all of this? And then we went into, this is how you actually run it. These are the slides that you need. Now, I already had that in my sales mastery, but when I brought it into my sales mastery is my signature program. But when I brought that into my membership, I added more information into it. So there was something for me to work from, but it still took an awful lot of time to actually create it all.
Well, thank you very much. So next question is one I'm sure everybody will be very curious to know, and obviously the title of the actual podcast. So what are the key steps? How do you supercharge your business growth? Because obviously you're taking businesses, getting to 6-7 figure businesses. So how does that process evolve, and what are the key elements of it?
Okay, so I've got some notes. So if you see me looking down, it's just because I wrote it all down. I didn't want to leave anything out. So supercharging your business, there are a number of steps. I'm not going to go through all of them today, but I did want to cover what I think are the 3 most important ones. And one of them I think can get missed out a lot. So the first one is mindset. That's all about showing up and dealing with that inner critic and busting through those challenges that you're facing. The second one is all around creating lifetime clients. And I really want to talk about that because so often, I don't know about you, Hakeem, but in the coaching field, it's just like they don't talk about lifetime clients. It's like a client comes in, they go through a process of a coaching program, and that's it, they're away. And they never think about how that client can come back and either refer them, come back as another client, or buy another part of your offer and work with you. So I wanted to cover that. And of course, selling, and if you have those 3 things in place, you will definitely supercharge your business growth.
Okay, so just a couple of questions on those 3 things. So you've got mindset, creating lifetime clients, and then selling. I mean, interesting enough, creating lifetime clients is or necessitates the person, i.e. you, to be creating new content and new course. Because when I speak to lots of coaches, or even you talk about the sales processes you've been to, I think the challenge of creating lifetime customers and clients is if you've just got a stationary product So I put them through a coaching process and that's it. Or I've got a selling process and that's it. Then, well, they're not going to come back for more. They may well refer you, but they're not going to keep coming back because it's like, oh, well, I've done that already, haven't I? Which is obviously something you talked about. But I just want on the mindset. So this is an interesting one. I did a podcast some time ago. So someone was interested to look at mindset. So do you feel that mindset is something that can be developed, or are you just born with the right mindset and, you know, it's fixed?
Well, you can have a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So there are two different types of mindset. I would hope that if you're a coach or a consultant, that you've got a growth mindset because you've got to go and help other people. So I'd really hope that you've got that. But there are two different mindsets, you know, and a growth mindset is more open to learning and understanding that we've got to grow. So what happens is that as we grow up, we're very much influenced by our parents and also influenced by our school and what they tell us. And we are all different people and we're very creative and we learn in different ways. So with the greatest respect, our parents don't always get it right, although they really try, but schools don't always get it right. And I think education is fantastic, but it is built on a bit of an archaic system. And as we are growing and understanding more about mental health and people who have things like ADHD and how they need to learn, and they learn in a different way to somebody that doesn't have ADHD, I'm not 100% sure that the schools are always sort of like equipped to deal with all those different types of learning that people need. So, but what I definitely know is that through going through, and working on your mindset and getting rid of that inner voice, that negative inner voice that you have inside, you can definitely change your mindset around. And once you change around your thinking, it will change your beliefs, that will change your actions, and you will get a different outcome. And a really great book for anyone who is interested in this is the book by Professor Steve Peters. And he was the professor, or he's actually a psychiatrist as well by trade, but he's written a book called Mind Management. And I'd suggest that everyone gets it on Audible. I have both the written copy. Audible's much easier to digest, I can tell you that. And I listen to it going on my walks. I mean, he's a fantastic guy. And he was the brains behind getting our cycling team winning all those golds in Beijing. And I remember, I've even bought the Steve Peters book. I think it's called The Mind Chimp Paradox, for children, right? And I don't have children, but my niece has got children. And I'm thinking, let me read this so I can work better with the kids, And, but he's really, really good. And he really explains that how our emotional brain is the brain that was first created, that we go back to the caveman times. That's the most powerful brain. You've then got the human brain, which is logical and, which is reasonable, it's reason. And then you've got what he calls the computer brain, which sort of like does everything. And it's about helping you to get your human brain stronger so that you can control the emotional brain so you don't react badly when something happens. So yeah, I do think that you can definitely change your mindset. You need to work with the right person. You need to, work with an expert. And I personally think that mindset is a daily practice. It doesn't matter who you've worked with, you can still have bad days,
Yeah, I think that's an important point, actually, because I think people think whether you consider it a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, but even people with a growth mindset, I think they'll be coached. And if they're coached not by the right person, they get to a point where they think, oh, right, well, yeah, now I've now got a growth mindset and I can cope with everything. And then something happens and knocks them completely off course. So I think that, as you just described it, it's a daily in a talk, as you said, you were talking about gratitude you know, exercises in the morning, etc. There's lots of stuff you need to do on your mindset to keep yourself in that space on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I do think gratitude journaling is incredibly powerful, and I try and get all my clients to do it. Of course, I can't force any of my clients to do it, but I always say to them, do it for 2 weeks and you will notice a difference.
No, yeah, I think so. I think so. So you've got the mindset, which we just talked about, and then you've got creating lifetime clients. Tell me a bit more about that.
Okay, I'm just gonna so maximizing your life, the value of your lifetime client. So really what that's all to do with is really creating such a great relationship with your client that actually they want to keep coming back and working with you because they really enjoy it and they have a great experience. And it's not about seeing your client as a qualified lead. It's about seeing your client as a human being. You know, so it's, you know, we often in sales terms, and I do as well, talk about the prospect, talk about the lead. You know, it's seeing behind that, and this is a human being, and you can have a great relationship with them, and it can be a really good, fun experience, and you can help them to get to that end destination point, to solve that problem. And if you come at it from that perspective of being a lifetime client, then actually they will end up becoming a lifetime client. And what happens is they will, you know, because you've delighted them and they feel really good, they will feel cared for as well. And then what happens is they're far more likely to recommend you. They're far more likely to tell their friends and family about you. They're far more likely to encourage people to buy from you. And a referral is, you know, the best lead that you can get because it's so easy to convert into a paying client. And really, you're then creating an unpaid sales force. So you've got a sales team who you don't pay, and they just love you so much. They want to tell people about you. And when you get to that point, you will find that your clients start coming to you saying, are you going to bring out any other programs at all? Or you run in any events? Because actually they want to spend their money with you. And that is a very, you know, privileged position to be in. And when I personally think, and I was taught this by Peter Needham, who started up was one of the co-founders of the executive coaching company I worked for. He said, it is a privilege to coach someone. And he says, I'll never forget that, because they come to you and they put their trust and their faith in you, and they will open up and tell you things that sometimes they don't tell anybody else, and they're very, very vulnerable. And great things happen when you have a great relationship with your client and your client can really trust you. So lifetime clients are fantastic. We should all try to get those lifetime clients. It's a lot easier to sell to an existing client than acquire a new client. But what happens a lot of time with, as I said, I work a lot with coaches and consultants, is they don't necessarily have a sales plan in place for cross-selling or upselling. They just think, like, if they're a coach, well, you know, I have a client, well, I help people with their careers. Yeah, all right. Let's have a look at some of the programs that you can offer. And what about having a power hour or something, so that if people just want to have a taste before they invest in a more serious way, at least they've got that opportunity and you're still earning some money. So a lot of the times it's about helping people to see that just beyond that single program.
Yeah, I think the key thing, or one of the key things you said there was about, right at the beginning, you said having that end goal in mind. Because if you go into a process and you haven't got that end goal of having a lifetime client, then the chance of getting there, you may well get there, but it'll be coincidence. Whereas if that's what you're trying to get, that dictates the way you approach that client, the way you interact with that client, the programs you bring out for that client.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that jumps out to me, and you said this very, very much earlier when you were talking about the female niche, I think if you actually niche down to a niche that you know needs your services and you actually genuinely want to help, then it's much more likely you want them as a lifetime client. It's much more likely they'll want you to work with them, and it's much more likely that you will both enjoy that experience because you're working in an area that you think, actually, I want to work with these people. Because I mean, when you mentioned it earlier, I could see in your body language the enjoyment of just thinking about that niche, which I think is often missed when people are trying to niche down. They think, oh, well, that's a profitable niche, so I'm just going to go for that one. And obviously you want it to be profitable, but you want it to be enjoyable because you're going to be spending a lot of your time with those people.
Exactly. Yeah, I think most niches are profitable. If you go really micro small, they probably won't be. But working with female coaches, mainly who are introverted female coaches, it's actually quite a big market. And what it doesn't mean is that somebody who isn't introverted won't work with me, you know, and I've had men who've come to me and say, Carole, I know you mainly work with women. Would you consider taking me on? Or would it be okay if I joined that program? And of course, my answer is always yes. And I have men, like in some of my programs, they're there, you know, and they're really great guys. And you want to help them as much as you want to help everybody in the program.
Yeah, no, I think that's what sometimes people, or the misconception about niching. I think people think, oh, I've got this niche, and that means I cannot work with anybody else outside this niche, and it's not about that, is it really? It's about this. That's my target audience, but by virtue of serving that target audience, you will automatically draw people from other or outside that initial niche, and it grows out. But it just keeps you, I think, it keeps a person laser focused in terms of their marketing and how they're trying to attract people when you do niche down.
Yeah, absolutely, Hakeem, because you've only got so much time and so much money that you can invest in your marketing. And therefore, the clearer you are, the clearer it's going to be received by your potential client. And your potential client is looking to say, yes, I want to work with that person, or no, I don't want to work with that person, because confused mind won't buy. And if they're too confused about what you do and who you serve, they're not going to buy anyway.
Yeah.
And even if they say, okay, I really want to work with that person, but I'm not going to work with them now. No doesn't mean never. It just means not now, you know, and you don't know what will happen several months later. And actually what we all want is we want to work with the right clients. We just don't want to work with any client. We want to work with the right clients that bring the best out in ourselves, as well as we help them to bring the best out in them.
Indeed. So mindset, we talked a little bit about, and obviously all of these, and I know Carole could talk ad infinitum about all of them, but we're going to have an hour, so we're going through it quite a pace. So we talked about mindset and getting that right and ensuring that we've got a growth mindset, then creating lifetime clients, and then the dreaded S word, selling. So talk us through how your selling differs, or what your process is that makes it such an effective process.
Okay, so there are some fundamental building blocks that I really help my clients to get into place, and they are probably sick and tired of me talking about them, but I know it's going to help them in the long run. So like, for example, getting a mailing list, you know, and getting up, and some of them have real difficulty in choosing which email management system to use. And the great thing is, when I started my business, I had exactly the same problem, you know, so then I say to them, it's all right, choose this one, this is really good. And then they go, all right, you know. So, and I explain to them why it's a really good system and how it's going to be easy to use. But so I help them to get some fundamentals in place. So a mailing email management system, and starting email marketing once a week. I also make sure that they're creating some lead magnets or freebies or opt-ins, whatever you would like to call it. Because again, what they're doing is they're building an audience, and you need to have an audience of buyers. That's what I always tell them, not just any old audience, an audience that will buy from you. And therefore, by creating lead magnets, you can see who's putting their hand up to say, I'm interested in this. And then your job is to nurture and develop that relationship. And you can do that through email management. And then you can supplement that by running a webinar every so often, so that they actually say, come on to Zoom, and you get to see their face and you get to say hello and hear their voice. So email management system, lead magnets. Then what I start to do is help them to get really clear around their messaging, because again, you know, you've got to get that clear so that your client can say, this is the person for me. And a lot of times as well, it's about having a really clear offer. So what is your offer? What's the wrapper that you put around the offer? For a lot of my clients, that wrapper might be a sales page. Then it's about, have you validated your offer? So who have you spoken to that has said, yeah, I want to buy that. That looks really good. Then it's about getting your messaging right. And then the next level of that is about building your credibility around that offer. So again, what happens with a lot of my clients is they are entrepreneurs. You know, they might be a coach, but they've got this entrepreneurial spirit, and they like to sort of like, you know, the bright shiny object syndrome. They like to move around, and it's about keeping them on track, because successful businesses do the same thing day in, day out. And that can sometimes become very boring for people, but it is the stuff that you need to do. So it's getting all of that battened down first. And sometimes there is resistance in people. And that's when I say to them, I'm getting a sense that you're in resistance here. And they sort of like don't always like it, but they do agree, you know, and I can see, because they're not doing the work. And then it's about helping them to have that sales conversation. So when they say meet somebody face to face, how do they put them at ease? So we talk about helping them to get into the right state so that their vibration rises, that they start to feel really good. And they can do that by listening to some great music. For some people, they can go out and, you know, go for a run or go for a walk or go to the gym. For others, it would be about doing some yoga or some meditation, but it's all about raising your vibration. And for those who are extroverts and have their vibration is already big, it's about bringing that down slightly, because you want to match the energy of your client. So first thing they do, understand how to raise their vibration and bring their energy up. As I said, I work with a lot of introvert clients, so that's really helps them. The next is about how you put your client at ease. And that's all around small talk. What are the things that you're going to say to get your client talking? And then the next part is which is really the main part of it. It's all around asking your client questions, finding out, you know, what does their vision look like? Because in a lot of cases, they haven't spoken about their vision to anyone. They've never verbalized it out loud. And as a coach, they're hearing it for the first time. So it's getting them to talk about their vision. And if they can't, or they're finding it a struggle, the coach has got to help them to articulate it. So I show them how to do that. And then they find out what their vision is. And then it's all around repeating that vision back to them. Because again, a lot of the time, somebody's hearing about it for the first time. They're hearing somebody else talking about it. But this time you really amplify it. So it's where you use much more colorful words and colorful language in a positive way. And so that they hear somebody talk back to them and tell them what their vision is, and they get excited about it. And then it's about saying, I think that I can help you. I've worked with some clients that have been in a similar situation. Of course, that has to be true. You're not lying. And then you tell your clients how you've helped other clients with similar situation. Then you ask them, would they like to know about your services? You tell them about your services. And I always suggest that clients take a sort of like a diamond type shape. You never just tell them about one service, you give them 3 options. You start with the most expensive first, because when they hear the most expensive, they might think, oh crumbs, that's really expensive, I can't afford that. And then when they hear the next offer, they think, oh, that's a lot more doable, I can buy that. And then you tell them about your 3rd offer, and you just make sure that there is a gap in between each, so that from a money perspective, it makes sense. But you don't talk about the money straight away. You talk about what your offer is. You find out what your client would like, and then you tell them what the fees are. And again, you start with the most expensive first, and then the second most expensive, and then the 3rd. And then you just simply ask them, you can say, how do you feel about that? Is there anything there that you would be of interest? Would you like to start working with me at all? And I always say that you need to ask, because you've got to remember it's that person's money. They're making the decision, because sometimes people say, when do you want to start working with me? And I personally find that quite an aggressive approach, because the client has the power. It's up to them if they want to work with you. So you ask for permission. And I know a lot of sales coaches will say you never do that, but I always tell my clients to do that, and it works for them and it works for me. And once they've told you yes, they would, they might have some objections. And generally, if they've got objections, it's because you haven't answered all their questions in that process. And I always say to my clients, there are really only 2 objections, and it's not time and it's not money. The 2 objections are, do I believe that you can get me to that end destination point? So have you demonstrated to me enough confidence that I believe that you can get me there? And the second one is, do I, as the client, have enough confidence in myself that I will be brave enough to step forward and do it? They're the really only 2 objections. And once those objections are gone, they will buy from you every single time. So as somebody who is selling, it's really important that you show up really confident. And that's why getting yourself into a really positive state at the beginning of the conversation is so important. And that's it, a very, very simple approach. I hope you agree, Hakeem.
I definitely do agree. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because sales becomes easy when you do the things you've just described. If you got the right messaging, and you've built credibility, and then you've cultivated and nurtured them through a mailing list, and then when you're having a conversation with them, you're in the right state. You get to a point where actually it's almost like a no-brainer that they want to, because you've been through a lot of different steps. And interesting enough, because I can't remember what the stats are, but I did read, I can't remember what percentage was, but it was something around that when you have objections, most calls or most conversations you have where there is some kind of objection, when it's a genuine objection, tends to lead to a sale, because it means they're interested. And I always use the analogy of, if someone rings me up and I'm really not interested, I don't ask them any questions. I'm just trying to get them off the phone as soon as possible. So when someone's asking an objection, it's because they're actually interested and they're trying to find out a bit more about your service, and you're moving down that path. And then the other thing that popped into my mind, and I probably mentioned this on other podcasts, I remember going to it was a presentation, and they were talking about what's the difference between successful salespeople and non-successful salespeople when it comes to mindset. And they were talking about, giving examples of 2 salespeople. They set out on the same day, and they've got 5 or 6 calls to make. And everybody starts at the beginning of the day, generally at motivation level 10, because it's, the music's blaring, everyone's happy. And then they both go into a call, same type of call, and it's a bad call, and they come out at motivation level 2. And then he said the bad salesperson, or the person who's not successful, then goes into the next call at motivation level 2. And obviously it just spirals out of control because you're not in the right frame of mind. Whereas the successful salesperson, and this is exactly what you were just talking about in terms of the right state, between that being at level 2 and getting to the next call, however they do it, whether it's music, whether it's going for a walk, they get themselves back into motivation level 10, so that when they get into that next call, doesn't mean it'll be successful, but they've got a much better chance of getting that to be successful. And then that goes on, so they're always going in at the same state. And the state that is required for that call. So I think that the way you've described that is a really nice way of encapsulating all of the key elements that you need to have success. And just on that, because one thing I've noticed is, you get lots of people say the money's in the list, and that's always, in my opinion, been true in terms of cultivating and nurturing. But you have a lot of people nowadays who think, oh no, email marketing is dead. There's no point doing that. Do everything on on social media. What's your view on that?
No, I don't agree with that at all. And actually, I was just recently reading some research. I can't remember who it was, but email marketing still wins when it comes to selling over social media. The one thing that social media is fantastic at is it gets you exposure and it raises awareness. And that is key. And you can definitely sell on social media, but you will sell so much more with an engaged list. And I've got some stats that I share with my clients around it. So a normal emailing list will deliver 1 to 3% of people will buy from you. If you've got an engaged email list where you're writing on a regular basis, at least once a week, and you ask questions and people respond to you, that's the indication that your list is engaged. Not everybody's going to respond to you, but you're getting a few people comment back. You can probably sell anything between 4 and 5%. And a super engaged list, you can be 10%. And I actually worked with a coach once, and she got 17% return from her email list, and she was making millions from it. But it's what it is, it's all the other things that go with it as well. So she did video all the time. She had a really large personality, and when you're on video, you do have to amp up your personality a bit. I've worked with video specialists because I can be quite serious, like an awful lot of the time, right? And I've got to really make sure I'm always smiling. So she goes, smile talk, Carole, smile talk. So that's where like my little cheeks go up and I'm talking as I'm smiling, And what I always do in my videos, because I'm looking at myself in case those cheeks go down and I'm not smiling. But I make mistakes because I get really nervous when I do video, and I've already prepared and I've learned what I'm going to say, and then I will fluff it up and I just laugh and it really calms me down and I go on. But that type of thing really endears me to my clients because they think, oh, she doesn't get it perfect. She does make mistakes. That's great because we make mistakes too.
Authenticity, isn't it? And in terms of the mailing list, I mean, I can't remember, it was many years ago, someone said to me because I used to be one of those people thinking, well, mailing list, it's a lot of work. And, how does somebody want to work or hear from me every single week? Well, they want to hear good advice and good questioning every single week. So it doesn't matter so much. And what it was that really triggered my mind is they said, because I used to do a lot of Facebook marketing. And they said, so if Facebook was to go down, well, all your customers are on Facebook. So if Facebook block you or throw you off for whatever reason, and you haven't got a mailing list, you're pretty much dead. You'd have to start again from the beginning. Same thing with LinkedIn, etc. These are owned by massive conglomerates who change their algorithms and their rules and regulations virtually every day, where your mailing list is yours effectively. So if you've got an engaged mailing list, and this is not to decry social media, because as you said, it's a great way to amplify your message and get people into your list, but you should be running those things concurrently and not leaving one thing and saying, oh, I've got a great, I've got hundreds of millions of people on Twitter. Donald Trump had hundreds of millions of people on Twitter, and then he got banned and now he's struggling to get his message out. And that's a really solitary tale of, if you haven't got a mailing list, that's exactly what can happen to you. So I think it's a really important point, actually, to make that mailing lists are still a real important way for business. And virtually every successful business person, all the marketing gurus have hundreds of thousands or millions of people on their mailing list, and they are doing it relentlessly. So,
exactly. I mean, I know a really big coach who turned over 5 million in the last 12 months. She's openly said she has over 10,000 people on her mailing list, you know, and she's nurtured that list all the time, you know, for years. And that's how it happens. And it is things like social media, and they add video on, and they might do some lead magnets, they might give away some free courses, and it's all being driven through the mailing list. So of course, people are opening the emails because they always know it's either going to be, you know, they're going to get something that's going to help them in their business, or it's going to be a really enjoyable email to read.
So give me, because my audience always love examples. So give me an example of, and you don't have to give me names. I always say no need to give names, but just give me an example of one of your biggest success stories and how it came about and how it happened.
Okay, so I will, one of my biggest success stories, actually, and she's not a coach, that's the other thing. She's actually an online tutor. And I was coaching somebody who was a social media expert, and it was her contact. And basically, when she came to me, you know, she only charges a small amount. She was charging like £25. And she was married, and she's got a grown-up son. And she said, do you know what I really want? I want to buy my own home. She was living in rented accommodation. And I said, okay. I said, and she said to me, she started working with me sort of like in the May. And she said, by July, I want to be earning 10,000 a month. I said, okay.
No pressure then.
I can tell you right now, I said, that's not going to happen. I said, I just want to manage your expectations. And I explained why, because she didn't have anything, she had no system set up.
Yeah.
The only thing she was doing at that time was her one-to-one coaching, well, her one-to-one online tutoring. And she was also charging a small amount of money. Plus, she had a day job as well. So she had this part-time job at Heathrow Airport where she was working shifts. So sometimes it was through the night, other times it was during the day. So I said, this is going to take a number of years. But what we did with her was we got really clear. So first of all, she got a brand new website. She had her branding done for her. I mean, it was awful before, but she got this fantastic branding done for her. Then what we did was with her, we started to create some little programs. So first of all, she created some online programs that she was selling for like £12, £17, and that was all adding up. Then she went on and she created this thing called Speaker's Corner. So at the weekend, she ran a different service rather than one-to-one. It was group coaching where you could come along and practice your German speaking. Okay. And nobody else was doing that. So that was really innovative. And then she went on to create, which she's now done, is she's created a membership. And through all of that, what happened as well, we got her finances into real order. She cleared all of her debt, and she also started to save on a regular basis. So years ago, I read that T. Harv Eker book on millionaire mindset. Yeah. And he had like how you can save just a little bit of money. And that's what we started to do. So for every client that she did, it was like take £1 from each client. And this year in June, she applied for a mortgage to buy her home. So
fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm so pleased because, you know, she isn't like 20 or 30, she's in her 50s, and she never thought that would happen. And I just think that's wonderful.
No, it is, and it's a really nice story because, as you said, you've taken her through that process, which is why I always like to get a practical example, because people are always giving theories and saying, oh yes, we do this, this, and this. But it's about, yeah, we do that, we apply it regularly, and here's the examples of when I've applied it and what it has done to that person. And it's not, and I'm not going to ask her how much money they're making, but it's not always about getting people to 5 or 6 or 7 figure businesses.
No, it isn't.
Getting them to achieve their goals, and some of those people are 6 and 7 figures, which you do, but also some have got smaller aspirations, like buying a house. And those are often the most rewarding, I find, actually, when you've got someone who's achieving something that they never thought they could achieve. Because when somebody says they want a 6 or 7 figure business, generally they probably think they can achieve it, they just need some help. Whereas when you're saying I want to buy my house, you're going from a point of, well, I don't think I can buy a house. So if you can actually do that, that's probably sometimes harder than getting those big figures and supercharging their business. So that's a really nice story.
I had another client who said to me, all I want to do, Carole, is register for VAT. That was her goal, because she felt that once she had to register for VAT, she would have grown her business. She used to be she was like the counselor who would go into the prisons. So she worked for the one of the prisons locally, like in London. And when she started her business, she was starting her business on the side and still working in the prisons. And then when she worked full-time on herself, she said to me, I never thought that I would be able to earn more money than what I was in the corporate world, you know, in my day job. And she said, all I want to get to is the VAT threshold. She goes, because that means that I would have made it. And I love that. I just absolutely love that, because I think, yeah, we're going to get you there no matter what, you know, because I want to really champion those people.
Excellent. So I mean, we talked about, and we're coming to the end of our hour. So I always say to people, because as I start getting into it, you get very excited, and there's loads of things we can talk about. So I'm going to have to get you back on to get to deep dive into a lot of these areas. But one of the things that you do in your business is the Infiniti 500 Club, which is fascinating. So I want you to just tell us a bit more about that.
Oh, thank you, Hakeem, for letting me talk about that. That's very kind of you. So just to give you a little bit of context, I started up a high-level networking group, and it was amazing, and it was going so well, and it was growing. And I mean, it was expensive. It was like, for a networking group, it was £1,500. We met 9 times a year, you know, and COVID came, and it absolutely knocked the guts out of it. Excuse me, sorry. And it was really hard, and I really struggled through it, and I kept it going. And this year I thought, do you know what? I think I'm going to take something and do it online. And that's when Infiniti 500 came. So Infiniti 500 is like what I call it, a premium membership group. And it's for people who want to, you know, build a successful business and a brand that people adore. And it's really helping those clients to take that step, to level up. And we do that through a number of things. We have sort of like about 5 or 6 meetings a month. They get a networking meeting, they get group coaching sessions. We have a learning, I call it a learning hip, which is a highly innovative, tailored solution. And we have also an SEO clinic once a month, where we have an SEO expert comes in and talks to them. And then we also have a content clinic as well. So there's all the basic things there. And then they come in and we have conversations. We get on really well. We've built great sort of like relationships with people. And I had one photographer, I mean, he's really well known and he's done fantastically in his career. And he said, right, I'm going to go for this client and this is what we get. What do we do? And sort of like within 10 minutes, I go, no, go in and say this, then this, then this. And he came away and he got a £10,000 photography contract. And that's part one of it. Part two will be exactly the same price, maybe even a little bit more. So he's really delighted. So it's an online membership. It's all about helping people to grow their business and also to build that brand.
Okay, and what does the 500 signify?
Right, okay, so our mission is to get 500 people in earning £500,000.
Okay.
Or turning over £500,000.
Oh.
That's what our big vision is. Not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to earn six figures. Some people want to earn more than, 100, wants to earn more than 500K. So we've got some people who would say, actually, I'd like to just keep under the VAT level, because actually that makes it just a lot easier for me. Others are, oh, crumbs, no, I want to earn multiple six figures. And, but we'd love to be able to say one day we've had 500 people who've gone through here and they have made 500,000.
Oh, an excellent aspiration, and I'm pretty positive you'll get there in the not too distant future. So obviously I will, when we put the podcast out, I'll put your website on there, I'll put the YouTube channel, etc. Okay. So that people can then find you, and actually if they want to apply to be in the Infiniti 500, they can do the stats. So I've only got one last question before we wrap up for today. And it's just a very simple one, because I found that most of the successful people I ever speak to are always reading books and trying to learn more and more. So I always ask people, at the end, are you reading any good books or any recommendations? Obviously, he talks about the mind management one. I was just wondering whether or not there's anything else that you would recommend that would be good bedtime or other time reading.
I've read, which I always recommend, is Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's a fantastic book. Also, The Miracle Equation. That's the follow-up to The Miracle Morning. Oh. And that's a brilliant book. And a book that I read years ago that I always remember, and I'm not 100% sure if you can get it now, but if you can, it's brilliant. It's called The Click Moment. And the reason I've got to dig it out so I can read it again, actually. I wish I had that on Audible, to be honest, is that it tells you that everything can change on the moment of a click. It's like the modern way of saying everything can change on a dime.
Yeah.
But you just click. So obviously it's the click moment is like the internet, and something will happen and everything can change. So it's a really good book as well.
Thank you very much. And there's one last one. I'll just say that was the last question. It's a penultimate one. If there's one thing that you could leave my listeners with, what would it be?
The one thing I would really recommend all your listeners do every single day is to sell. No matter how much it is, just sell every single day. And what that could look like is I'm going to reach out to somebody on, say, Facebook Messenger, and I'm going to ask for a meeting, or I'm going to tell them about an event or a course that I'm running. Just sell every day. Ideally, you need to do that 2 hours a day, but if that's too much, start off with 30 minutes. It will make all the difference to your business.
Thank you very much, Carole Bozkurt. It's been illuminating, and I'm 100% sure that we'll get lots of good questions and reviews, and you'll get lots of people ringing and asking more about what you do, because it's a really refreshing situation to have salespeople and marketing people who've got very clear processes and are not just always trying to get everybody, although you are, to the six figures, but you're dealing with a broad range of people, and your niche, I think, is a really interesting one as well. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Hakeem, for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Excellent.